The chance encounter, the morning rain painted streaks across the towering glass walls of Cross Industries as Zara Winters hurried through the marble lobby. Balancing a carrier of steaming coffee cups, her worn sneakers squeaked against the polished floor, a stark contrast to the clicking heels of executives rushing past her. At 24, she had perfected the art of being invisible in places where she didn't belong. "Excuse me, coffee delivery for the 35th floor," she announced to the security guard who barely glanced up from his newspaper. This was her third delivery to Cross Industries this month, but she'd never made it past the 20th floor before. Today was different. Today she was heading straight to the executive level. Elevator ride felt endless as she watched the floor numbers climb. Her reflection in the polished steel doors showed a young woman with determined brown eyes and shoulder length. Auburn hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She wore the standard uniform of City Brew Coffee Shop, a simple navy polo and khakis that did nothing to flatter her figure. The elevator chimed softly as it reached the 35th floor, revealing a reception area that screamed wealth and power. Floor-tisseling windows offered a breathtaking view of Manhattan, while modern art pieces adorned the walls between sleek black furniture. "Coffee delivery," Zara announced, approaching the marble reception desk. The receptionist, a polished woman in her 30s, looked up with barely concealed annoyance. "Mr. Cross is in his office down the hall, last door on the right. Please be quick. He has a board meeting in 20 minutes. The receptionist's tone suggested that Zara was already taking up too much of everyone's valuable time. Zara nodded and made her way down the hallway, her steps muffled by thick carpeting. The walls were lined with awards and photographs of Cross Industries' achievements over the past decade. She paused briefly at one photo showing a ribbon-cutting ceremony for a new technology center, her eyes drawn to the tall, dark-haired man at the center of the image, Damian Cross, the boy genius who had built a tech empire before his 30th birthday. She reached the end of the hallway and knocked softly on the mahogany door marked with a simple gold nameplate reading Cross. "CEO," a deep voice called out for her to enter, and Zara pushed open the heavy door. The office was even more impressive than she had imagined. Massive windows dominated two walls, offering panoramic views of the city below. A leather seating area occupied one corner, while a state-of-the-art conference table sat opposite an enormous desk made of dark wood and glass. But what caught her attention most was the man standing behind that desk. Damian Cross was taller than she had expected, with broad shoulders that filled out his perfectly tailored charcoal suit. His dark hair was slightly tousled as if he'd been running his hands through it, and his steel-gray eyes held an intensity that made her breath catch. "Coffee delivery," she managed, holding up the carrier with what she hoped was a professional smile. "1 black coffee, extra shot, and 1 cappuccino with oat milk." Damian looked up from the documents spread across his desk, and for a moment their eyes met across the room. Something flickered in his expression, a spark of interest that made Zara's pulse quicken unexpectedly. "Just set it on the table by the window," he said, his voice carrying a slight roughness that suggested he'd been up late. "The cappuccino is for my assistant," but she stepped out for a moment. As Zara moved toward the indicated table, her messenger bag shifted, and to her horror, a manila folder slipped out, scattering papers across the polished floor. "Oh no," she whispered, dropping to her knees to gather the documents. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment as she scrambled to collect the scattered pages, hoping desperately that nothing was damaged or out of order. "Here, let me help, Damian's." His voice was suddenly much closer, and she looked up to find him crouched beside her, gathering papers with surprising gentleness. His proximity sent an unexpected wave of warmth through her, and she caught the subtle scent of his cologne. Something expensive and masculine. "I'm so sorry," she stammered. "I was delivering these to the law firm on the 20th floor after this stop. I didn't mean to make a mess in your office." Damian paused in his paper gathering, his eyes scanning one of the documents in his hand. His expression shifted from polite interest to sharp focus as he read. "These are patent applications," he said slowly, looking at her with new attention. "Very sophisticated ones. The technical specifications here are extremely advanced." Eyes met hers, questions forming in their gray depths. "You're delivering patent applications for quantum computing interfaces?" Zara's mouth went dry. She reached for the papers in his hand, but he held them just out of reach, his gaze never leaving her face. "I just deliver what they give me," she said quickly, but even as the words left her mouth, she knew he wasn't buying it. There was something calculating in his expression now, the look of a man who built an empire by seeing opportunities others missed. The moment hung between them, pregnant with possibilities that would change everything. "The revelation, the annotations in the margins," Damian continued, standing slowly and helping her to her feet. "These aren't just delivery documents. Someone has been making corrections, improvements to the original designs. The handwriting matches the delivery slip you filled out downstairs." Heat crept up Zara's neck as she realized her mistake. She had been so careful for months, keeping her two worlds separate, but here in Damian Cross's office, her carefully constructed barriers were crumbling. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, reaching again for the papers. It's time he let her take them, but his intense gaze never wavered. "Zara Winters," he read from the delivery slip. "That name sounds familiar." He moved to his desk and pulled out his laptop, typing quickly. His eyebrows rose as he read whatever appeared on his screen. "My class of 2019. Dropped out in your final semester. You were working on a thesis about quantum classical interfaces." I'm self-zipping up at her, pieces clicking into place. "You were 3 months away from graduating with highest honors." The silence in the office was deafening. Zara clutched the papers to her chest, her heart pounding so hard she was sure he could hear it. She had worked so hard to leave that life behind, to bury the dreams that had once consumed her. "That was a long time ago," she said quietly. "Deliver coffee now, that's all." "Why?" It's a simple question held a weight that made her look up at him. There was no judgment in his expression, only genuine curiosity. "Why walk away when you were so close to finishing?" For a moment, Zara considered lying, giving him some simple explanation that would let her escape this conversation and return to her safe, invisible life. But something about the way he looked at her, with respect rather than pity, made her want to tell the truth. "Because dreams don't pay for sick mothers or keep the lights on," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "Because sometimes life forces you to choose between what you want and what you need to survive." Damian was quiet for a long moment, studying her with those penetrating gray eyes. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than before. "What if you didn't have to choose anymore?" The question hung in the air between them, loaded with possibilities that Zara didn't dare consider. She shook her head, backing toward the door. "I should go. Your assistant will be back soon, and your coffee is getting cold." But as she reached for the door handle, Damian's voice stopped her. "I have a proposition for you, Zara Winters." She turned back to find him leaning against his desk, arms crossed, looking every inch the powerful CEO who was used to getting what he wanted. "Have dinner with me tomorrow night. It's not because you're delivering coffee, but because I think you might be exactly what my company needs." "I'm not interested in charity," she said quickly, her pride flaring. A slow smile spread across Damian's face, transforming his serious expression into something that made her stomach flutter dangerously. "Trust me," he said, his voice dropping to a low rumble that sent shivers down her spine. "What I have in mind has nothing to do with charity." Zara's hand tightened on the door handle as she stared at him, trying to read the intentions behind his intense gaze. This was dangerous territory, mixing her carefully compartmentalized worlds in ways that could destroy everything she had worked to build. "One dinner," he continued, pushing off from his desk and moving closer. "If you're not interested in what I have to offer, you walk away, and we pretend this conversation never happened. But if you are," he paused, close enough now that she could see flecks of blue in his gray eyes. "If you are, then maybe we can talk about turning those coffee deliveries into something more permanent." Her practical mind screamed warnings, but something deeper, something that had been dormant for years, stirred to life under his gaze. When was the last time someone had looked at her and seen potential instead of just another service worker? When was the last time someone had challenged her to want more than just survival? "Where?" she heard herself ask, the word escaping before she could stop it. Damian's smile widened, and she realized she had just stepped off a cliff without knowing how far she might fall. The dinner? I'll pick you up at 7. Or something that makes you feel powerful, Damian said, returning to his desk and pulling out a business card. He wrote something on the back before handing it to her. My private number. Text me your address. Zara took the card with trembling fingers, their skin brushing for just a moment. The contact sent electricity shooting up her arm, and from the way his eyes darkened, she knew he felt it too. This is probably a mistake, she whispered. Probably, he agreed, his voice rough with something that made her pulse race. But the best opportunities usually are. It's a black sedan that pulled up to Zara's apartment building at exactly 7 o'clock was understated, elegance personified. She watched from her 4th-floor window as Damian stepped out, looking devastating in a dark navy suit that fit him like it was crafted specifically for his broad shoulders. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she took one final look in the mirror. She had chosen a deep emerald dress that hugged her curves while remaining sophisticated, paired with heels that made her legs look endless. Her auburn hair fell in soft waves around her shoulders, and she had applied just enough makeup to enhance her natural features. For the first time in years, she felt beautiful. Powerful, even. The knock on her door came exactly 3 minutes. Later, Zara took a steadying breath before opening it, and the look in Damian's eyes when he saw her made every nervous moment of preparation worthwhile. You look incredible, he said, his voice carrying a rough edge that sent warmth spiraling. Through her chest, his gray eyes traveled slowly from her face, down to her heels, and back up again, leaving a trail of heat in their wake. Thank you, she managed, grabbing her clutch and trying to ignore the way her body responded to his intense gaze. You clean up pretty well yourself. The restaurant he chose was intimate and exclusive, the kind of place where reservations were. Made months in advance, and every table offered privacy for important conversations. As they were seated in a corner booth with soft lighting and a view of the city lights, Zara couldn't help but feel like she was stepping into someone else's life. Tell me about MIT, Damian said after they had ordered wine, leaning back in, his seat with genuine interest. What made you choose quantum computing? Zara hesitated, her fingers playing with the stem of her wine glass. It was the future, she said finally. The possibility of solving problems that seemed impossible. Creating connections between worlds that had never touched before, like bridging quantum and classical systems. Exactly. Everyone said it couldn't be done, that the technologies were too different. But I could see the patterns, the way they could complement each other. Her eyes lit up as she spoke, the passion she had buried for years beginning to surface. Damian watched her intently, fascination clear in his expression. What happened? What made you stop? The light in her eyes dimmed slightly. My mother got sick. Cancer. The treatments were expensive, and someone had to take care of her. My father had already left years before, so it was just me. I had to choose between my thesis and keeping her alive. I'm sorry, Damian said quietly, and she could hear the genuine sympathy in his voice. She died 6 months later anyway, Zara continued, her voice steady despite the pain. By then, I was too far behind to catch up. The research had moved on without me. I convinced myself it was better to start over, to find something practical. But you never stop thinking about it, Damian observed. The annotations on those patents prove that. You've been keeping up with the research, haven't you? Zara nodded reluctantly. It's hard to turn off your brain when you see problems that need solving. Sometimes I can't help but notice inefficiencies, better approaches. Show me, Damian said suddenly, pulling out his phone and opening a note-taking app. Explain one of your improvements here now. Zara looked around. The elegant restaurant. Why not? I've built my entire career on recognizing brilliant minds. And right now I'm sitting across from one. For the next hour, Zara found herself sketching diagrams on napkins, explaining complex theoretical concepts with an enthusiasm she hadn't felt in years. Damian asked intelligent questions, pushing her to elaborate on her ideas, clearly understanding the technical aspects in ways that impressed her. You're not just a businessman, she realized suddenly. You actually understand this stuff. It's MIT class of 2015, he said with a smile. Computer science and electrical engineering. I may wear suits now, but I'm still an engineer at heart. Why didn't you say anything earlier? Because I wanted to see if you'd open up naturally, if you'd share your passion without feeling like you had to impress me. His eyes grew serious. Zara, what you've just described could revolutionize how we approach quantum classical interfaces. These aren't just improvements, they're breakthroughs. The waiter appeared to clear their plates, and Zara realized they had been talking for hours. The restaurant had emptied around them, but she felt like she could continue this conversation forever. I have an offer for you, Damian said as they prepared to leave. Come work for me, not as a coffee delivery person, but as a lead researcher. I'll fund your research, give you a team, provide everything you need to turn these ideas into reality. Zara's heart stopped. I can't accept charity. This isn't charity. This is business. Smart business. He leaned closer, his voice intense. I've seen what happens when brilliant minds get the resources they deserve. You could change the world, Zara. The question is, are you brave enough to try? As they walked out into the cool evening air, Zara's mind reeled with possibilities. For the first time in years, she dared to imagine a future where her dreams weren't just fantasies, but achievable goals. And at the center of that future was a man whose gray eyes held promises she was finally ready to believe. The new beginning 2 weeks later, Zara stood in her new laboratory at Cross Industries. Surrounded by equipment she had only dreamed of accessing, the space was a temple to innovation, with quantum processors humming quietly and climate-controlled. Chambers and holographic displays showing complex data patterns. Still can't believe this is real? Damian's voice came from behind her, and she turned to find him leaning against the doorframe, watching her with an amused expression. I keep expecting to wake up and find myself back at City Brew, she admitted, running her hand along the pristine surface of a quantum computer. 3 weeks ago, I was delivering coffee. Now I have a team of 5 brilliant researchers and a budget that makes my head spin. You've earned this, Damian said, stepping into the lab. The preliminary results from your first prototype are already generating interest from major tech companies. The quantum classical bridge you've designed is exactly what the industry has been waiting for. Zara smiled, but something in her expression caught his attention. What's wrong? It's not wrong exactly, it's just ... She paused, choosing her words carefully. Sometimes I wonder if you did this because you believe in my work, or because you feel something for me. Damian was quiet for a moment, his gray eyes studying her face. Would it matter? Yes, she said quietly. Would matter a lot. I need to know that I'm here because I've earned it, not because ... because I'm falling in love with you, he finished, his voice soft but direct. The words hung in the air between them, and Zara felt her heart skip several beats. She had known. There was attraction between them, had felt the electricity every time they were in the same room. But hearing him say it aloud made it real in a way that both thrilled and terrified her. Are you? She whispered. Instead of answering immediately, Damian moved closer, his hand reaching up to cup her face gently. I knew you were brilliant the moment I saw those annotations. I knew you were strong when you told me about your mother. But I started falling for you when you chose to take the risk, to believe in yourself again. Damian, she breathed, her resolve weakening as his thumb traced her cheek. But you're right to question it, he continued, his voice growing more intense. So let me be clear. I hired you because you're the most talented researcher I've ever encountered. The fact that I'm crazy about you is just an incredibly lucky coincidence. Before she could respond, his lips were on hers, soft and demanding. At the same time, the kiss was everything she had imagined, and more, filled with weeks of building tension and unspoken feelings. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. This complicates things, Zara said, though she made no move to step away from him. The best things usually do, he replied, echoing his words from their first meeting. Over the next few months, Zara threw herself into her work with renewed passion. The quantum classical interface project progressed rapidly, with breakthrough after breakthrough. Her team respected her leadership, and the scientific community began to take notice of the revolutionary work coming out of Cross Industries. But it was the quiet moments with Damian that truly transformed her. He challenged her intellectually, supported her professionally, and loved her with an intensity that made her feel like the most important person in the world. "I have something to show you," Damian said one evening as they walked through Central Park, fingers intertwined. He led her to a bench overlooking the pond where the city lights reflected like stars on the water. "What is it?" Zara asked, noticing the nervous energy in his posture. "Your research has been selected for the International Quantum Computing Conference," he said, pulling out an official-looking letter. "They want you to present the keynote address." Zara's eyes widened as she read the invitation. This is the biggest conference in the field. Scientists from around the world will be there." "It gets better," Damian said, his smile growing. "Wider Mitt has reached out. They want to offer you a full professorship. You'd be the youngest person ever appointed to their quantum research department." Tears filled Zara's eyes as the magnitude of what he was telling her sank in. "I can't believe this is happening." "Believe it," Damian said, pulling her close. "You've worked for this, fought for this. You deserve every bit of recognition coming your way. What about us?" she asked, suddenly aware that success might mean difficult choices. "If I take the MIT position, we'll figure it out," he said firmly. "I'm not letting you go, Zara. Not now, not ever." As she looked into his eyes, Zara realized that somewhere along the way, she had stopped thinking about this as a temporary arrangement. Damian wasn't just her boss or even her boyfriend. He was her partner in every sense of the word, someone who had seen her potential when she had forgotten it herself. "I love you," she said, the words coming easily now. "I love you for believing in me, for pushing me to be better, for showing me that I didn't have to choose between my dreams and my heart." "I love you too," he replied, kissing her forehead gently. "And I have one more surprise." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, dropping to one knee right there on the park bench. Zara's hand flew to her mouth. As she realized what was happening, "Zara Winters," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. "You've already revolutionized quantum computing. Will you revolutionize my life too? Will you marry me?" The ring was perfect, a brilliant diamond surrounded by smaller stones that caught the light like quantum particles dancing in space. But it was the man offering it, the man who had seen her worth when she had forgotten it herself, that made her heart soar. "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes, of course, yes." As Damian slipped the ring onto her finger, Zara realized that sometimes the most unexpected encounters could change everything. A simple coffee delivery had become the beginning of a love story that would reshape both their worlds. The perfect future 1 year later. Zara stood at the podium of the International Quantum Computing Conference. Looking out at an audience of the world's most brilliant minds, the keynote address had gone better than she had ever imagined, with her presentation on quantum classical interfaces receiving a standing ovation. "Ladies and gentlemen," she concluded, "the future of computing lies not in choosing between quantum and classical systems, but in creating harmony between them. Just as the most beautiful relationships are built on complementary strengths, the most powerful technologies emerge when we bridge different worlds." As she left the stage, Zara caught sight of Damian in the front row, his eyes shining with pride and love. Next to him sat her new research team from MIT, colleagues who had become friends, and investors who now saw her work as the next great technological revolution. "That was incredible," Damian said, catching her as she came down from the stage. "You've just changed the entire industry." "We changed it," she corrected, standing on her tiptoes to kiss him. "None of this would have been possible without you believing in me first." The reception afterward was a whirlwind of congratulations, partnership offers, and interview requests. Zara found herself in conversations with Nobel laureates, tech CEOs, and venture capitalists, all eager to discuss her breakthrough research. "Dr. Winters," one journalist asked, "how does it feel to go from coffee delivery to potentially winning the Nobel Prize in physics?" Zara smiled, her hand unconsciously moving to the engagement ring on her finger. "It feels like life has a way of bringing you exactly where you need to be, even when you can't see the path clearly. Sometimes what looks like an ending is actually a beginning." Later that evening, back in their hotel room, Zara and Damian sat on the balcony overlooking the city where it all began. The lights of Manhattan twinkled below them. Zara couldn't help but think about how much had changed since that rainy morning. when she had delivered coffee to the 35th floor. "I have news," Damian said, pulling out his phone. "Cross Industries just received approval for the quantum computing division. We're officially launching next month, with you as Chief Technology Officer." "That's amazing," Zara said, though something in her expression made him pause. "But," he prompted, "but I've been thinking about MIT's offer, about the chance to teach, to inspire the next generation of researchers." She looked at him carefully. "I know we talked about this, but I wanted to make sure you're really okay with me taking the position." "Zara," Damian said, taking her hands in his, "I fell in love with your brilliant mind and your passionate heart. I would never ask you to compromise either of those things for me. Besides," he added with a grin, "who says we have to choose?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, Cross Industries is opening a research partnership with MIT. You'll be heading up the academic side while consulting on our commercial projects. It's the best of both worlds." Zara stared at him, amazed once again by his ability to find solutions where others saw only problems. "You had this planned all along, didn't you?" "I had faith that we'd figure it out together," he said, pulling her close. "That's what partners do." 6 months later, Zara stood in her new office at MIT, surrounded by eager graduate students working on quantum computing projects. Through the window, she could see the campus where she had once been a struggling student, where her dreams had first taken shape. Her phone buzzed with a text from Damian. "Saw the news about your patent approval. Dinner celebration at 7? "You future Dr. Cross?" Zara smiled, her heart full as she looked at the engagement ring that would soon be joined by a wedding band. They had set the date for spring, planning a ceremony that would bring together two worlds that had once seemed impossible to bridge. "Professor Winters?" One of her students approached her desk. "I'm having trouble with the quantum entanglement. Calculations for my thesis." "Let me see," Zara said, settling into her favorite role as mentor and guide. As she worked through the problem with her student, she thought about the journey that had brought her here. From a coffee delivery that had seemed like just another mundane task, to a life filled with purpose, love, and unlimited possibilities. Her phone buzzed again. This time with a photo from Damian, showed the front page of the morning newspaper. With her research making headlines, MIT professor's breakthrough could revolutionize computing forever. But it was his message that made her heart soar, from the man who knew you were extraordinary before the world caught up. "Can't wait to spend forever watching you change the world." Dud. As Zara helped her students solve the complex equation, she realized that her own life had become a perfect example of quantum entanglement. She and Damian had become so connected that their successes and dreams were forever intertwined, each making the other stronger and more complete. The rain had stopped outside, and spring sunlight streamed through the windows of her office, illuminating the equations on her whiteboard and the photos on her desk. One showed her with Damian on the day they announced their engagement. Another captured her receiving her first major scientific award, and a third showed her former MIT classmates who had reached out to congratulate her on her success. "Professor, I think I've got it," her student said excitedly. And Zara smiled as she watched another brilliant mind make a breakthrough. That evening, as she walked across campus toward her car, Zara reflected on the incredible journey that had brought her here. She had learned that sometimes the most profound changes in life came disguised as ordinary moments. A coffee delivery, a spilled folder, a chance encounter with a man who saw her potential when she had forgotten it herself. Her phone rang, and Damian's name appeared on the screen. "Hey," she answered, unable to keep the smile out of her voice. "Hey yourself, brilliant woman. Ready for our celebration dinner?" "Oh," she said, getting into her car. "I love you, Damian." "Love you too, Zara. See you soon." She drove through the city toward the restaurant where they had shared their first real conversation. Zara felt overwhelmed with gratitude. Her life had become everything she had once dreamed of, and more. She had her research, her teaching, her purpose, and most importantly, she had found a love that challenged her to be her best self every single day. The future stretched out before them, full of possibilities neither of them could have imagined when they first met on that rainy morning. And as Zara pulled into the restaurant parking lot, she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. As partners in every sense of the word, sometimes the most extraordinary love stories began with the most ordinary. moments. And sometimes when you were brave enough to believe in second chances, the universe had a way of delivering exactly what you needed, right when you needed it most. The end.